You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker, and join our group with the exact same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. The views expressed by the host of this podcast are not opinion-based or for entertainment purposes. They are actually facts and truth, no matter if other people like it or not. It is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Michigan sports fanatics. Hope you had a very happy Halloween, and welcome to episode 237 of the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker, another installment of the Week in Review, the weekly recap that is now. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith, my co-host. Thanks so much for being on here with me, Ed. How did you enjoy your Halloween?
Nothing much, Taylor. Just stayed home, eat candy, and watched a bunch of movies. So that's pretty much what Halloween has come to nowadays for me. But in either way, good chance to enjoy another good day throughout the year here. I definitely had a good chance to enjoy my weekend, my Saturdays, regarding the Michigan State rivalry for once in a long time. We're going to get to that very shortly. Unfortunately, though, it was quickly overwhelmed by yet another horrific Lions loss. A lot of things that we definitely need to get to in this episode.
Yeah, definitely. Especially the Wolverines and Spartans in their in-state rivalry game. Plus the Lions finding a way to lose on the road again. And lots of Red Wings to talk about, just a little bit of Pistons to wrap it up, followed by 5 questions. But first off...
Touchdown, Michigan! Touchdown, MSU!
Most fans expected this game to be a rout, but it was a bit of a closer game than expected, except it wasn't too close. In fact, the Spartans scored with an L.J. Scott 5-yard touchdown run on the first drive of the game, but the Wolverines didn't waste any time responding, as Jabril Peppers took it in from 3 yards out, and it was tied at 7 after 15 minutes of play. Then the Maize and Blue took the lead, courtesy of Davion Smith, to begin quarter number 2. Michael Geiger inched the Spartans to within 4 with a long 52-yard field goal to cut it to 14-10. But Michigan started pulling away with 2 Kenny Allen field goals and another Davion Smith touchdown to lead 27-10 at halftime. Jordan Lewis would intercept a pass from Tyler O'Connor on the first play of the last Spartan drive of the first half before Allen would kick in his second field goal as time expired. The Wolverines would get the ball first to start the third quarter, but quarterback Wilton Spate threw an interception by Darian Hicks, who returned it 42 yards to the Michigan 33-yard line. But the Wolverines' defense would make a goal line stand as the Spartans kept turning to L.J. Scott on all 4 downs after a pass interference call, and Scott failed to convert and score on all of them, as he was tackled for a 2-yard loss on 4th down and goal from the Michigan 2-yard line. In result, there was no scoring in the third quarter, and then Kenny Allen would nail a third field goal on the day from 23 yards out to make it 30-10, but somehow Michigan State would come right back.
Oh, man!
Brian Lewerke, the freshman quarterback, would throw a 20-yard touchdown pass to Monty Medeiros to pull MSU to within 13 with 7:31 remaining in the game. Lewerke would somehow leave the game with a broken tibia a bit later on in that fourth quarter, and that broken tibia would put him out for the rest of the season, and that's pretty devastating for Michigan State because he's still got a ways to go. He's a freshman quarterback, but he was already showing us a little bit of something. Wasn't quite lighting it up a whole lot, but he showed the green and white nation a bit of something here. But the green and white would add a touchdown pass from O'Connor, Tyler O'Connor that is, to Donnie Corley with 1 second left, but they would have their extra point blocked, in which Jabril Peppers would return the football all the way the other way for a defensive 2-point conversion, and that would be it. Now, statistics shows Wilton Spate, 16 out of 25 passing for 244 yards and his interception to begin the third quarter. Eddie McDoom, 2 carries for 53 yards. Karan Higdon, 10 rushes for 44. Davion Smith, 11 for 38 and 2 scores. Jabril Peppers, 5 for 24. Amara Darbo, 8 receptions for 165 yards. For MSU, Lewerke, 6 for 10 for 100 and a touchdown before he left with his broken tibia. Tyler O'Connor, 7 of 14 for 84 and a touchdown and an interception. LJ Scott, 22 carries for 139 rushing yards and a score, and 2 catches for 47 receiving yards. And RJ Shelton, 2 rushes for 57. Now, as I pointed out, this was a rivalry game, and it appeared as if Michigan would start each half off a bit slow, but somehow respond with some kind of success. The Wolverines pretty much owned the first half, especially the second quarter, but the second half was pretty shaky, especially in the fourth quarter when the Michigan State Spartans kept themselves in the game trying to come back. Michigan's defense in totality would force 3 turnovers on downs, but the Spartans managed to put up a total of 23 points in a losing effort. So, Ed, I want your thoughts.
Well, first and foremost, let's start off by saying yet another terrific all-around performance from Michigan's offense, particularly Wilton Spate. Wilton Spate, I thought, had one of if not his best games so far this season. Jim Harbaugh mentioned in his post-game comments that he had a very Jake Rudock type of game, and seeing what Rudock did last year, it would probably be like an easy recollection to apply here in terms of terminology to how Spate performed. But I think it's a very fair comparison. Spate did not look rattled, even on the road, and some would say a hostile environment. But the way this team, Michigan State, has performed this year, I wouldn't call it hostile per se. But even still, he was very calm, very in control of the situation. Really, essentially, played mistake-free except for one errant pass where he slightly underthrown. But I thought that was the right play call going with the wheel route. He just underthrew the ball. That was it. Other than that, I don't think he took any. Yeah, did he take any sacks? Let me count. Let me see. No sacks whatsoever. Credit, of course, goes to your offensive line for that, but also Wilton Spate played a good part in that as well. There was one play where a defender's coming at him, and Spate essentially moves out of the way just in the nick of time. So some deceptive athleticism on the part of Spate, plus also finding his targets, putting the ball where only his receivers can catch it, whether it be Jake Butt and especially Amari Darbo, the career day that he had. My goodness, Wilton Spate was, I think that was somewhat one of, if not the biggest question mark concerning how Michigan will perform coming into this game. I think Spate more than showed up for this part and played extremely well, and was probably the biggest reason, believe it or not, and not the defense, as to why Michigan won this game. I will admit, though, once it got 30-17, I think you can kind of tell in terms of play calling and how body language in general, both offense and defense, Michigan definitely got complacent, took their foot off the gas pedal just a little bit. And that did allow MSU to not 30-17, but 30-10 rather. That's when the complacency started to begin. That allowed MSU to get that quick score to make it 30-17. And once they got the ball back, you're thinking, okay, hey, they scored another touchdown here. We might be in business. But once again, the defense did come up big where it mattered the most. Fourth down play, knew MSU had to go for it. He couldn't settle for another field goal. And thanks to great man-to-man coverage by their secondary, as well as a terrific blow-up in terms of their defensive line winning the battle against MSU's offensive line, Jabril Peppers, of all people, wound up getting the sack that ended the drive, essentially ended MSU's hopes for a comeback right then and there. and also at the same time ended Lewerke's season. So that's a triple play right then and there. While I have a moment, a brief subject matter, a brief editorial on Peppers. Looked quite impressive. Had that touchdown. He also had the sack that I mentioned on fourth down. Had a couple good plays himself. There was an early fourth down in one situation where MSU was driving, tied 7-7. Looked like they're trying to create some big momentum. Peppers comes behind, drags down Holmes, the running back, slows down his momentum, and once Up arrives, that stops the fourth down right then and there. And of course, the 2-point play at the very end, where he, uses his flat-out speed. As soon as he gets the ball, he was gone. I counted it, and I distanced it myself looking at the tape. It looked like he essentially ran, at the very least, close to a 4.5, if not 4.4, 40-yard dash. And then when he finished out, finished that run, it was about 10 seconds, essentially, 9 or 10 seconds. So you're talking about the way he traveled, 70, 80 yards in that short of a time span. Impressive speed on the count of Peppers. And by the way, most likely he won't win the Heisman this year because Lamar Jackson is just absolutely phenomenal. It'll be a crime for someone else other than Jackson to win it. But I think the way that he played in this game, not to mention the constant hype that he's getting, and the team that he's playing for, not just the brand of Michigan, but the fact he's playing for a potential playoff team, it could, at bare minimum, garner him a seat as one of the finalists in New York City. So Peppers probably won't win, but he could still, the way he's playing, I definitely think he'll be a good chance to be a finalist. Speaking on that fourth down play, well, not the fourth down play, but the play after the touchdown where MSU made it 30-23. I got to say this. I think one undetermined factor that we forgot to mention is, who will make the fewer mistakes from the coaching aspect, because going into it, it wasn't seem as conceivable, right? Because you have two great coaches in Harbaugh and D'Antonio, but you have to think, both these guys, they're not going to coach the perfect game. Somewhere down the line, someone's going to make a mistake. And D'Antonio had two critical, I thought, game-killing mistakes from a coaching standpoint. First one was early in the game, that 4th and goal near the one where, Michigan State, they kept ramming LG Scott at Michigan time after time after time again. But when for sure, since Michigan knows for sure that's the play they're expecting that's going to come at them, they're going to be more expecting to stop it. So that's what happened. Now, either this was a Dave Warner specialty where he called the same damn play over and over again, or D'Antonio called it himself, or a combination of both where D'Antonio, Warner told D'Antonio it was going to happen, and D'Antonio said, sure, go ahead, without, trying to override that and try to suggest something else. That led to the failure of getting stuffed at the goal line and no points scored whatsoever. Then, you turn around, all of a sudden, boom, they're down the field the next play with a Darbo one-handed catch. And then, of course, so that was one big error by D'Antonio's part. And the second one, of course, we got to talk about it. After they scored the touchdown to make it 30-23 with 1 second left on the clock. Instead of kicking the extra point, D'Antonio, for some inane, crazy, weird, wild-ass reason, decides to go for 2. And O'Connor pitches the ball. Of course, there's no timing whatsoever. So the ball loses a fumble, which leads to the Peppers picking it up and running it the rest of the way. I think it's fair to say, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, and quite shocking when considering who it came from. I don't know when the hell Mark D'Antonio was thinking making that. I think you have a better chance of being successful if you just take the easy point, and let's say what happens. Say you do get the ball back on the onside kick. I believe the rules, correct me if I'm wrong, but the rule doesn't necessarily state that once the kickoff team legally gets the ball back on an onside kick, I think the play is ruled dead right then and there, and no time runs off the clock. So let's say that happens. They get the ball back. They still have the time for the one down I think they would be owed, untimed or not, where, hey, throw it up to the end zone, see what happens. We've seen crazier things happen before, especially in Spartans Stadium. So who's to say that could have been a possibility, unless D'Antonio was so on the mindset, hey, we're going to make this, and if we get the onside kickback, we're going to get the Hail Mary and win anyway. Forget about overtime. So it's either you lose. So overtime was nowhere in his equation, or in one sense you would say. But again, if I sound like I'm babbling, it's because I was so confused and befuddled by what I just witnessed. I was just dumbstruck. It was very baffling what Mark D'Antonio was doing with that play, and he played a big part in Michigan State losing this game for sure.
Yeah, and that leads us to where the Michigan Wolverines and Michigan State Spartans go from here. The Michigan Wolverines, first off, stay at number 2 in the AP poll, but are ranked 3rd in the college football playoff poll behind the number 2 Clemson Tigers and the top-ranked defending national champion Alabama Crimson Tide, but they're still ahead of the 4th-ranked Texas A&M Aggies, who have just leapfrogged the Washington Huskies for that 4th spot in the college football playoff poll. The Huskies are still ranked 4th in the AP poll, but 5th in the college football playoff poll. But for the Michigan State Spartans, they've fallen to 2-6 and 0-5 in the Big Ten, and they're pretty much eliminated because they have found incredible ways to lose thus far this season, and it's self-contagious to the Green and White Nation.
Yeah, definitely self-contagious. It's on offense. It's being shown on defense. Obviously, special teams, what we saw against Northwestern. And, I hate to say it, but it goes to the coaches. It's got to be on coaching to a degree when you saw what D'Antoni did on Saturday, plus the numerous errors that Dave Warner has made in play calling throughout the season. Not to mention the fact this is one of the most undisciplined MSU teams I've ever seen in recent memory, if not ever, under Mark D'Antonio's tenure. So you factor all that in together, it's not particularly a surprise that you're seeing a record of this caliber. You're just surprised of the team that's doing it. If this was, one of the bottom dwellers of the conference, you think, okay, it's expected. Or this was Kansas football, you're like, okay. But a Michigan State team coached by Mark D'Antonio, coming off of another 11-win season. Oh, and by the way, another Big Ten title. Oh, and by the way, a trip to the college football playoff semifinal. You wouldn't expect to see that happening, but alas, here we are.
Yeah, and in that game, Mark D'Antonio didn't use L.J. Scott much. L.J. Scott scored a touchdown, and then they started using him at the beginning of the third quarter when the Spartans were knocking on the door. L.J. Scott on all 4 downs somehow failed to convert on all of them, and Michigan got the ball back on downs. But other than that, L.J. Scott didn't get the ball much or any at all, for that matter. That's what Ryan Schuling pointed out on the Schuling Report on the Team 92.1 FM WQTX in Lansing, and that L.J. Scott's one of your top running backs for Michigan State, and Mark D'Antonio somehow didn't use him much, and some of that can be pinned on the head coach of the Spartans.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Scott, like I mentioned before, the way he played on Saturday, he was essentially your lone spot of positivity here in terms of keeping you in the game. Now, again, you could have found better ways to get him the ball. Screen passes, swing passes out the backfield, draw plays, not just the essential hammered up the middle using the dive play. They could have found much more creative ways to get Scott more touches on the ball without having, the typical hand it off to him 3 yards in a cloud of dust theory. So they definitely failed in that. And again, yet another failed adjustment from the coaching staff in that game.
Yep. But other than that, Michigan's defense continued to show that they are a stout brick wall. Even though they allowed 23 points, they stopped the running game, especially on that goal line stand, which was incredible. And Jordan Lewis did his thing. So Michigan is still carrying their best defense out there, going back home to Ann Arbor and awaiting the Maryland Terrapins Saturday at 3:30 on ESPN. Michigan State lost to those guys on the road. Michigan can easily handle them at home, but we'll preview that at some point later in the week, probably Thursday at midnight. For Michigan State, they're at Illinois against the Fighting Illini at noon on ESPN News. The Fighting Illini are also 2-6. It's going to be a battle for the bottom seeder against the bottom seed in the Big Ten.
Basically, this is your trip to determine who has a fighting chance to go to the Little Caesars Pizza Bowl.
Or, that's for the bottom seeders now. Yeah. By the way, what used to be called the Little Caesars Pizza Bowl, for those who haven't caught up lately, it had changed to the Quick Lane Bowl, like 2 or 3 years ago. But that it is the Quick Lane Bowl now. But that's why we called it the bottom seed bowl, the Little Caesars Bowl for college football. Now that we've covered the in-state rivalry game and where they go from here, now it's time for my MAC Roundup for the Mid-American Conference, especially my Chippewas.
Touchdown, Central Michigan!
My Chippewas just flat out choked their game at home against the Kent State Golden Flashes in the end, losing 27-24. They had another not-so-great first half, and the entire game appeared to be very close. It was tied at 10 at halftime, and then CMU led 24-10 with 7:58 left in the third quarter after a Tony Anise 28-yard pick six and a Mark Chapman 40-yard touchdown catch before that. And then they opened the door and let Kent State right into their teepees and suffered this loss by allowing 17 unanswered points, including the game-winning 35-yard field goal by Shane Hines as time expired in the fourth quarter. Cooper Rush, oh my God. He threw 3 interceptions to go along with his 20 of 43 passing effort for 244 yards and 2 scores.
He freaking sucks.
He still can't cut back on throwing interceptions, and he needs to stop. Plus, the rushing game and the offensive line were beyond pathetic again. They were cow shit. Because the statistics show, for example, Devin Spalding, 10 carries for 40 yards. And Jare Hayes, 12 for 31.
That's disgusting. Disgusting and disgraceful.
Yeah. It's a 50-50 split of shame between the running back department and the offensive line. The offensive line is really letting the opposing defensive front penetrate them so much, and it's not allowing the running backs or the quarterbacks to do their jobs. The quarterback Cooper Rush keeps getting flushed out of the pocket. He's forced to scramble a lot, and the running backs have nowhere to go, but also are making mistakes as to where to go. They just keep going up the middle and just getting stopped so easily that it just doesn't work too many times. It can't work all the time. It can't work too many times. You gotta go. You gotta at least try to going end around on either left or right. Try a jet sweep. That'll work. Try going in around on it. Just like Dorian Martin of the Big Rapids Cardinals football team. Sometimes that works. Not all the time, but sometimes. Corey Willis, the receiving department wasn't great either. Corey Willis, 6 catches for 78 yards. Not terrible. Mark Chapman, 4 catches for 73 and his touchdown. For Kent State, Nick Holley, 10 for 18 for 102 yards and 1 touchdown and 1 interception, and 24 carries for 144 yards.
Oh, man!
Justin Rankin, 15 rushes for 78. And Kent State was going into Mount Pleasant at Kelly Short Stadium 2-6. CMU was 5-3 at home. And they just let Kent State beat them. Stupid.
Stupid fool.
The Chips will play on Friday in Oxford, Ohio, against the Miami, Ohio Redhawks at 6 o'clock kickoff on Friday. That's going to be televised on CBS Sports Network. The Western Michigan Broncos just now smashed the Ball State Cardinals 52-20, as seen on ESPN2. Corey Davis, 3 touchdowns on 12 catches for 272 yards. Zach Terrell, 23 of 34, passing for 367 yards and 3 touchdown passes. Jarvion Franklin, 17 carries for 109 yards and a score. They are at Kent State next Tuesday at 7:30 on ESPN2 on Election Day. The Eastern Michigan Eagles. Broncos stay undefeated, by the way. The Eagles lose at home 28-15 to the Miami, Ohio Redhawks. Brogan Roback, 23 of 39 for 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Dealey Artistilde, 7 receptions for 193 yards and a touchdown. Gus Ragland, for the Hawks, 15 for 23 for 175 and a score. Jared Murphy, 9 receptions for 122 and a score. So the Eastern Michigan Eagles will go to Ball State next week, Tuesday at 7:30 on CBS Sports Network. So that's all the college football. That's all the college football we've covered, especially the MAC Roundup. Now we go to pro football.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Well, the Lions went on the road again, and they still find another way to lose. 20-13 at NRG Stadium to the Houston Texans. They are now 1-3 on the road. That game, they dropped too many passes. They committed too many penalties, 8 for 75 yards, compared to Houston's 6 for 49 yards. Plus, let's get to Jim Caldwell right away. He tried the onside kick with 2:53 left after a Theo Riddick touchdown pass because Caldwell couldn't trust his defense to come up with a quick 3-and-out stop because when the defense only allowed 20 points, and the onside kick was recovered easily by the Texans, and the Lions were forced to waste their last 2 or 1 timeouts, and the Texans sealed it by getting that first down and winding down the clock, and the Lions had no timeouts left. Jim Caldwell has gone from dumb to dumber, of course, as you know, not knowing when to take his timeouts, to not knowing when to when or whether or not to try an onside kick when the Lions still had plenty of time to catch up. They just needed a quick 3-and-out. But not only that, it gave the Texans field position.
Yeah, it was yet another banner day for the cause. If you're trying to lead, trying to show reasons why Jim Caldwell needs to be fired as head coach or not be brought back next season, if you want to be more polite, this was a banner day because not only you had that insanely idiotic call to go over the onside kick when A, it was just under 3 minutes to go at 2:55. B, you had all 3 of your timeouts left. And C, you still had the 2-minute warning. So unofficially, you had 4 timeouts if you want to count that way. And let's say, for instance, listen, I know the defense looked dreadful all day. I get it. But at the end of the day, it was still, they still held Houston at 20 points. And they did manage to get a turnover with an interception early in the game. So let's say, for instance, you need to get the ball back to drive down the field to score, to tie it up, presumably, right? Extra point pending. Wouldn't you need better help in field position for if you need to complete that? Okay, so let's say you get the 3 and out right then and there. But because Houston recovered the onside kick and having the punt, it easily gives them a chance to, if not punt it as a touchback, pin you down inside your 10 or 5 yard line, giving you an extremely difficult road to get to pay dirt, which is the end zone. So there was not only whereas if you have just kicked it off deep and let's say the defense gets a stop and you have some time left, you have a much better chance of working with field position. You would have a better chance of working at the 30, maybe 40 yard line, as opposed to presumably working at best at your 25 if it's a touchback, barring a miraculous Andre Roberts return again. So there was that decision which was beyond infuriating. But then there was another call early on in the game where DeAndre Hopkins appeared. It appeared that he had made a catch, turned around, established possession of the ball, and then subsequently fumbled it, which led to a Tavon Wilson recovery. And it was ruled on the field as incomplete, and yet when replays clearly show it was a catch and then fumble, and then camera cuts showing Caldwell standing with the red flag in his hand, looking like he's going to throw it. He doesn't throw it. What the fuck, man? Honestly, let's, even if you want to lose a timeout,
are you out of your mind?
In any way, let's be honest. What do you have the lose for? A meangly old timeout or a chance to get the ball back in a game where your defense finally, as they were getting gashed, they potentially got you 2 takeaways, which is one of the keys that I mentioned in the game. Win the turnover battle. They did that, but only by 1, and they really didn't take too much advantage of it. So knowing you want to get your offense as much cracks as you can, at least for Matthew Stafford's case, because I think he should be an MVP candidate. Didn't look good on Sunday, but I think still has a good chance later on. I digress. Knowing that, you don't take the risk, throw the flag, see what happens, especially when you see the numerous replays that I'm sure not just that the viewers at home were seeing, but at least 1 or 2 inside that stadium. I know it's on the road, but still, I think fair is fair, foul is foul. Even if you don't get that benefit, I think knowing the fact that you had it in your hand, knowing that this would be a potentially big break for your team, throw the damn flag.
Yeah, that's what it's there for. Don't just stand there like a statue, like a comatose statue, that is. Do something.
And again, another indictment on him, because remember, when he was brought in, he was supposed to be seen as the calm force to reverse the course of the bad temperament and bad discipline that we saw under Jim Schwartz's past years. Well, get this. Another 8 penalties for another 75 yards. Yeah, that's good calm leadership right there. Okay, so you factor in Caldwell's ineptness, plus the fact that Texas, with them running the ball and not getting off the field on third down, another key I had mentioned. Detroit 3 for 11 on third downs, Houston 6 of 15. But your shoddy secondary, already hurt because Darius Slay had to miss the game due to a hamstring injury, gives up another, makes Brock fucking Osweiler look like a credible and decent quarterback, making him look like $72 million that Houston has spent on him by being 20 of 29 with completions. No, he didn't throw them that much yards, but, even still, 20 of 29 of your completions, that's either A, you're facing a team that's very injured, or B, you're facing a shitty secondary. The Lions got a little bit of both, but it's more so a B than A because their secondary, even though they got a couple of turnovers here and there, it's bad. It is bad. Let's be honest about it. So them missing Slay was going to make things worse. So not getting off the field on third down, giving up yet another high percentage completion day to another quarterback, another inadequate quarterback, in my opinion, in terms of Osweiler. But the fact of, factor all that together, and not to mention, I'm sure I'm missing out on one thing. I mentioned the third downs. I mentioned, whatever something is going to come up. I'm sure it'll come up later, but still, just an all-around classic vintage SOL game. It seemed like the Lions, they're about to turn the quarter. If they somehow win this game, you're looking at 5-3 with 8 games to go, featuring, in my view, a very positive-looking schedule to potentially get you to 10-3. 10-6, and maybe a wild card spot. But then no, you're going around and lose this, and this was not what you wanted to do when you have your first of 2 games against a strong Minnesota Vikings team coming up soon. By the way, the very next one you have to play on the road to keep you up to date. So it was very imperative that they got this win today, and when they failed to do so, it creates a bit of a dark gloom on what the rest of their season could potentially look like. And now here they are at the midway point of the season, literally and officially, and they're at the spot where they started, at 500. And they're looking like more and more like the 8-8 football team that I predicted early in the season because of games like this.
Yeah, the Lions go on the road to Minnesota next Sunday at 1 on Fox. The Houston game, statistically, Matthew Stafford, 27 of 41 for 240 yards and a touchdown. Still impressive. Theo Riddick, 11 carries for just 56 yards. Eric Ebron, just 7 catches for 79 yards. For Houston, the Texans, Brock Osweiler, 20 of 29 for 186, a TD and a pick. Lamar Miller, 17 carries for 56 yards. That's pretty small. DeAndre Hopkins, 44 receptions for 44 yards. The Lions' defense was really up to the task. But the Houston Texans had the ball for 33 minutes and 58 seconds. The Lions, 26-02. And again, the penalties, 8 for 75 yards for Detroit, 6 for 49 for the Texans.
By the way, I just remember what I had forgotten to mention. Once again, the Lions giving up yet another touchdown reception to another tight end. This will be like their 15th. It feels like 15th already of this season. This one they gave up this past Sunday to Houston. Excuse me, I'm trying to look up the name. Look up the name.
Yeah, their secondary defense continues to be weak, whereas their defensive front continues to be really strong and vicious.
Yeah, the second. I will admit the front four. The defensive line did look impressive. They did get 3 sacks.
Yeah,
so they at least had that from them. But we figured that was going to be a strength regardless coming into the season. It's just their secondary that's horrible. And once again giving up another touchdown to another tight end. This one in C.J. Bitterwicks. I don't know who the hell he is, but still I know he's a tight end, so that alone gives him enough leverage to beat this sorry ass line secondary.
Mm-hmm. So after that game, the Lions earlier today earlier on Tuesday, made a trade sending a 2018 7th-round draft pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for cornerback Jonathan Banks. We'll analyze him on our Football in the Mitten preview. Plus, one of their defensive ends, Armonte Bryant, was suspended 3 games for a substance abuse violation. So the Lions will have to do without him the next 3 games, including the one in the new Vikings stadium against the Vikings in Minnesota, Sunday at 1 on Fox. Now that's all football. Let's shift over to hockey. Before their last 3 games, starting in St. Louis, Thomas Vanek, their left winger, suffered a lower body injury and was considered day-to-day at first, now week-to-week. Justin Applicator was reactivated from the injury list somehow. And he did not do a damn thing in that 3-game span since our last week in review. Now consider the weekly recap. The Wings found a way to win 2-1 in St. Louis in a 2-1 8-round shootout. Henrik Zetterberg scored the game-winning goal in the 8th round of the shootout.
Oh, man!
I love it!
But then they returned home and got blanked by Tuukka Rask and the Boston Bruins 1-0 on Saturday.
Damn it!
And then they lost to the Florida Panthers in a rout fashion, 5-2. They were down 5-1. And those were 3 games in which Anthony Mantha was not called up from the Grand Rapids Griffins. They just didn't generate. In result, they just didn't generate much offense. They scored just 4 goals in their last 3 games, and without Vanek or Mantha, the Wings' offense is just a pop gun again. Even with Franz Nielsen has gone from great in the beginning to stupid lately. And that's kind of what Jeff Moss of the Detroit Sports Rag pointed out to his audience.
If I can mention real briefly, you brought up the topic of Vanek's entry. Very bit of a big loss. We'll get into that a little bit later in 5 questions. But I'll just preview it by saying it definitely hurts. It definitely hurts from the early momentum that this team seemed to be starting. And now it's one reason why they're in a little bit of a minor tailspin, if you could call it that, even though it's 2 games, but still, the hot start that they had, now you follow up with 2 dreadful performances, especially against Florida Panthers. My goodness. Seemed like everything that my fears about what could plague this team up this season was shown in the microcosm, not just the Florida game, but also in the game against Boston as well. Bad defense, leaving your goaltenders out to dry, bad turnovers deep in your zone. That's what led to the deciding goal against Boston. Bad turnover from Larkin, which led to a capitalization from the Bruins. Also, not to mention the fact, in terms of defense, they're still horrible in defending odd man rushes. Like, or if it's 2-on-1, 3-on-2, hell, even 4-on-3. If you have an odd man rush, most likely, whether it's how they play it or they don't have their goalie doesn't know how to anticipate the right way, they are incredibly terrible at defending odd man rushes. I'm pretty sure about half their goals that they've given up this year have come on odd man rushes of some form or some kind. So that wasn't working in their favor. Not to mention the fact, if you count these last 2 games, they've now gone 2 of their last 9 in power play chances. 2 out of their last 9. Yikes. So that's one aspect they definitely need to improve on. And I gotta say it, even though I felt, and I would still stand by going into how he performed last season and the postseason before that, Brina Mrazek deserved to start this season as a starting goaltender, but he has looked flat out terrible. He's yet another instance where he gives up 4 or more goals. I mean, this last game against Florida, he gave up those 4 goals on 10 shots. You could say something that was based on bad defense, but still, if you're a goaltender and you give up, professional goaltender in the National Hockey League, and you give up 4 goals in your first 10 shots, something is wrong with you. I don't know what the hell it is, but he's just not looked that impressive. So much so that you're starting to see. I think they may not mention it publicly, but I think some may teeter towards more giving Jimmy Howard more of a chance nowadays, because not only have you seen how he's performed when he's given the chance, but also, he only gave up the 1 goal against Florida. And again, that was mostly based on the fact that his teammate ran into him, lost the talk, ran the hell into him, blocking his view from stopping the rebound chance. So, Jimmy Howard, I know you may not like it, Taylor, but he's looked pretty damn impressive. And let's look at his 3 starts.
I'm okay with it. By the way, slight correction, it was not against Florida. It was against the Boston Bruins on Saturday. He got the start against the Bruins. Mrazek started against the Panthers on Sunday.
Right. Okay, if I misspoke, my apologies. Thank you for that. But let's look at what Howard has done in his 3 starts, right?
Yeah, only allowed 2 goals. Just 2. I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Yeah,
please keep it up.
No more than 1 goal per game, 30 saves or more.
Man,
he took the shutout in one of those. Damn impressive, if you ask me.
2 Saturdays ago against the Sharks, the shutout, the 3-0 win when Gustav Nyquist scored 2 goals and Andreas Athanasiou scored one of his 2 goals. And yeah, Howard's lighting it up. Mrazek's getting beat up. And back to Vanek here. He's got 4 goals this season. I think 3 assists as well. But he's the guy that helped propel the Wings to a 6-game winning streak before it got snapped after he got injured.
Yeah, their leading goal scorer with 4 and their leading points getter with 8. Losing him to an early injuries that you don't know when he's coming back from. A definite hamper on your early, on your chances if you want to come off to a good hot start the way they were projecting towards before this happened. So yeah, I gotta say this played a role into their current snide right now, losing Tomas Vanek.
Yep. So after those 2 losses, the Wings have reclaimed. Well, let's start off with what happened with Marty Ferk and Teemu Pulkkinen. They were both put on waivers again. Ferk from the Carolina Hurricanes. The Wings actually claimed him and sent him down to the Grand Rapids Griffins. Teemu Pulkkinen was put on waivers by the Minnesota Wild. Hopefully he gets picked up by the Wings as well, unless you have an update on Pulkkinen.
I do actually, Taylor. I'm reading up on Twitter a couple of days ago on the 29th, actually. It stated that Pulkkinen cleared waivers and will be sent down to Minnesota's AHL affiliate in Iowa.
Yeah, the Iowa Wild. Yep. Yeah, Ken Holland clearly does not want Teemu Pulkkinen in his farm system or his organization. Ken Holland is just a sack of shit. Yeah,
he is. I'm surprised at Amy that we got Frick back to begin with.
Yeah,
getting Teemu back was icing on the cake, but Frick, hey, okay. 1 out, 2 and half that.
Yeah. So we got a couple articles to analyze. First off, the Hockey News article on Halloween Day. It analyzes how scary bad the OMG line is. Steve Ott, Drew Miller, and Luke Glendening. A negative 14.7% Corsi and a negative 29.8 shot attempts per 60 minutes in 40 minutes of TOI together. And
if you go through,
yeah,
go ahead, Taylor. I'm gonna stay. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
When you go through this article, it perfectly illustrates why how horrible it was for Ken Holland to give these guys contracts to begin with. It's quite oddly coincidental, yet perfectly timing with it being named the OMG line, because OMG, are you serious with this lineup that you're putting up there on the ice with these guys on the same damn line? But of course, obviously, it's the acronym playing on the fact that Steve Ott, Drew Miller, Luke Glendening, It is play on their last names, but still perfectly sums up their mere existence on this team and why they're on the same damn line. I guess in a way it's good so that their horribleness won't spread to the rest of the team on separate lines, but still, it's still bad to begin with. Not only did you mention the relative Corsi, Taylor, of minus 14.7%, a near minus 30 of shot attempts per full 60 minutes of regulation.
The relative Corsi, their relative Corsi, as read in this article, the second worst for any regular four line this season. And the OMG line on the very bottom paragraph is collectively worth negative 2.4 wins based on game score. The algorithm that the Hockey News has used for preseason projections, which is far and away the worst mark in the entire league for any trio of forwards. That could end up being the difference between the draft lottery and a postseason berth. So it's in between.
I think the only thing that was so shocking about it yet is that despite all of this, they still managed to have a 6-4 record, and winning and going on that brief winning streak that they had.
Yeah, and it also mentions Danny DeKeyser at 39.3% at the Corsi leaderboard. Drew Miller at a shocking 37%.
Oh.
All three are currently posting. All three, Miller, Glendening, and Ott, are posting a shot attempts percentage below 40%. The next worst Red Wing is hovering 43%. Other than Danny DeKeyser.
Still, that's a big jump in lines. Even so, that's a good jump in percentage points that separates, that differentiates from absolute terrible to slightly bad. So they're in the absolute terrible category.
Yeah, and this is another example of how Ken Holland has become one of the worst NHL GMs, one of the top 5 worst GMs in the National Hockey League. And that's how I view it. But he is one of the worst NHL GMs in the league, as Jeff Moss pointed out. Also, speaking of Danny DeKeyser, Prashant Iyer of Winging It in Motown, you can follow him on Twitter at Iyer_Prashant. He's the advanced analyst and sabermetric expert of Winging It in Motown. He published an article headlining Red Wings defensive improvement begins with correcting Danny DeKeyser's usage. It says that DeKeyser ranks 186 of 188 defensemen at 39.47 on 5-on-5 score-adjusted Corsi for 60 for greater than 50 minutes of ice time in 16.5 minutes on the ice per game. 5-on-5 Corsi 4 is 42.1, and his 5-on-5 Corsi against per 60 is 64.5. He's the only roster with a negative average game score of negative 0.6, even below Steve Ott. Possession exit. Yeah. Plus, possession exit percentage is 34.2, the lowest among Red Wings defensemen. The breakup percentage, 5.77, the second worst among Red Wing defensemen, ahead of Mike Green with 0%. And Danny DeKeyser, as most people know, is locked up for the next 6 years with a no trade clause or a modified no trade clause. The Wings have slowly increased his workload. That's what Prashant Iyer pointed out too, and that shows that they need to decrease it somehow, because not not only is he failing to produce, they're wearing him out. That's a 50-50 split of blame between DeKaiser himself and the coaching staff, especially Jeff Blashill, Doug Huda. One of the
that's an extreme case of double down, if there ever was one. I understand playing with the cards that you're dealt with. You didn't put together this roster. Your general manager did. I get that, but at the same point, though, you got to recognize how much of a detriment he's being to your team. Not only is he in the bottom 10 of NHL defensemen with the full strength score adjusted Corsi 4 percentage, he's also, in terms of defenseman zone exit data, one of, if not the absolute worst. I believe, in fact, he is the worst. Players like Green or Marchenko, even Marchenko, or even Jonathan friggin' Erickson have a much better possession exit rate and exit percentage rate overall in terms of defenseman zone exits than DeKaiser. DeKaiser has an exit percentage of 65.8, possession exits percentage of 34.2%, and failed exit percentage of 23.7. Although, all in all, that ranks him as very, very bad. And for a player that, he's getting he's going to $30 million deal, is going to keep him here until 2022, that's just not flat out acceptable. Now, if you still got a plan because that's the money's being dealt with, okay, I get that. Because, they still got to play just an applicator too when he gets back. But with DeKaiser, you got to find a way to limit his minutes. It's as simple as that.
You mentioned Jonathan Erickson improving vastly in his possession exits. He still turns the puck over. His pros and cons are divided here. Erickson still does a good job with his possession exits, and he still turns the puck over, and he still needs to cut back on that. He does block. He did block a couple shots in Game 1, but of this regular season. But other than that,
one adjustment, I will give him that. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah. He needs to get back to blocking shots, and he needs to stop turning the damn puck over. And he just won't stop. But he won't stop. Erickson is full of shit on the ice, mentally, except for possession exits, which he does best on nowadays. But Danny DeKaiser, of all people, we expected him to be better, and Ken Holland locked him up for a 7-year contract, 6 years after this season, and Danny DeKaiser is hitting rock bottom in most categories, especially possession exit time. But this is why the Red Wings are heading for a fall, even when they get Thomas Vanek back. Now, their upcoming schedule, they go to Philadelphia Wednesday at 8 on NBCSN's Wednesday Night Rivalry, facing off with the Flyers. They haven't beaten them in Philadelphia since 1997. Then they're home against the Winnipeg Jets. The Flyers are 4-5-1, by the way. The Jets 4-6-1. They face off with them at the Joe Friday at 7:30. Then on Sunday at 5, they play the 7-2-0 Edmonton Oilers, who are also mentioned in Hockey News' article with the best line, "Scary Good," featuring Connor McDavid. Let's do a scouting report on this. Connor McDavid, Jordan Eberle, and Milan Lucic, 97 minutes of total of time on ice together, a positive 11.2%, and a positive 25.6 shot attempts per 60 minutes.
And compared to the line of shit that Detroit strolls out every night, that's day and night beyond day and night in terms of that comparison.
These Oilers are better they're even better than a little better than they were in the 2006 Stanley Cup playoffs, which they could be when they forced a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals against the Carolina Hurricanes.
We can't jump that too far ahead. They haven't played 10% of their schedule so far, or something like that. We're barely a month into the season. I think we got to let that hype slowly build, slow burn here before we start proclaiming Edmonton as a playoff contender at this stage of the season.
Yeah, but more on the McDavid Eberle Lucic line. The McDavid Eberle Lucic line. The trio has scored 4 goals together at 5-on-5 and only given up 1 so far, while controlling 56% of the shot attempt battle. And anytime they're off the ice, the Oilers are only at 45%, which is probably what you expect from the rest of the Oilers. But the McDavid Eberle Lucic line has been very good together and are the engine driving the team's success so far. So that's the main thing to watch Sunday at 5. Then the Wings go to Philadelphia again on Election Day, next Tuesday at 7. The Wings stand at 6-4-0. That's going to do it for the Red Wings, actually. So we're going to switch to the Pistons real quick.
Left sideline 3, and he answers.
They beat the Orlando Magic in their home opener at the Palace. 108-82. Then they beat the Milwaukee Bucks Sunday night, 98-83. And then they took care of the Knicks 102-89 in their first homestand, which is 3 games. The Pistons held each opponent under 90 points, the first 2 under 85 in that 3-game homestand, after falling flat in Toronto 109-91 of the Raptors. But let's break down how the Pistons have done inside those 3 wins. First off, the Marcus Morris and Tobias Harris duo has been on a roll, especially earlier this past Tuesday night when Marcus Morris scored 25 and Tobias Harris scored 22. That's a combined 47 points in that game against the Knicks. Tobias Harris Tobias Harris with 25 with Morris with 22. Correction. KCP with 19.
Hey, good improvement from him after that horrible game that he had against Toronto. So, again, he needs to have these better balance of these type of games if he wants to get a new contract extension at the end of the season. But going back to Morris and Harris, once again, they're proving off to be yet another good coup of sorts for Stan Van Gundy with the trades that he made, getting Marcus from the Suns and getting Harris from the Magic. By the way, in that Harris trade, did you know they did not have to give up a first-round draft pick to get that? They only gave that away, got him for cap space, basically. So, seeing that this is becoming more and more of a steal by each game that it plays. We saw how well the team played after the addition of Morris, post deadline, heading for the second half of the season. Now we're going to get a chance to see it full up close for a whole season. Time where he has a chance to get more and more into a cohesive phase with the rest of the team and the scheme and how it operates. So once again, you're going to see why as long as Harris continues to show what he's got, Detroit should find a way to keep winning games even without Reggie Jackson due to his knee injury at the moment.
Yeah, and Vince Ellis said because of that, the Pistons are better off without Reggie Jackson.
Ah,
shut up, you idiot.
That I will disrespectfully, not disrespectful, oh my goodness, no. I would respectfully, let me get myself together, respectfully disagree with Vince on that, because even though, they seem to be doing well now, and I mean, they had an impressive win against the New York Knicks squad that had their own deep playoff aspirations for this year. So these are the type of games where if you want to be seen as a good team or a potentially great team, you got to win straight up. You'll often, you probably won't have a good chance against the likes of the Clevelands and the Torontos or even the Bostons because they look to be that damn good this year, which is no shame in admitting that. But against teams like the Magic, against teams like the Bucks, and even against teams like the Knicks, you should be expected to win more of a good handful of those games than what you are right now. Hence, it explains their 3-1 record. I thought they also did a much better job of sharing the ball around. I think that was virtually non-existent against Toronto. They've definitely improved on that in the past 3 games. Sharing the ball, not settling for quick possessions or jump shots. Move the ball around, get in the paint, kick it out to an open guy. We'll see what happens if he makes a shot. He makes a shot. There's not much you can complain on. I think they did much better tonight from 3-point range. They're 61.5%. They seem to be much better in the paint region. I'm trying to look for that right now. Yeah, much better in the paint. Outscored New York by a plus 22 margin. Rebounds, once again, another key strength of theirs. They won that battle by plus 5 margin, getting a lot of chance points as well. There was really not too much you can complain about other than the fact that Andre Drummond still needs to hit his free throws. But I will mention, currently at the moment, he is at 41%, which is better than what he finished with last year. So that's, you want to be optimistic. You want to find a silver lining and be optimistic about that. But still, he's got a long way to go. I will give him that. But in terms of getting in the paint, sharing the ball around, facilitate between Harris and Morris, Ish Smith, I think, is doing as good of a job as you can, knowing when he came in season, expecting to be, the backup point guard. Now he's being thrusted into the starting point guard role. But he and Beno Udrih have done a tremendous job in terms of keeping some stability in the Pistons backcourt while waiting for Jackson to get back. And even with Jackson, and think about the potential of how good this team can be once Reggie returns. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they'll skyrocket too. But not only are the Pistons playing defense, were the Pistons playing defense in their 3 wins at home, they beat their opponents by double digits in all 3 games.
Defense was the absolute key here. You saw how they got picked apart against Toronto. They looked dreadful. Here, what we're seeing this homestand, much better assignment switching, obviously not giving up a second chance points because you're winning the rebounding battle as well. So those play a big factor. And, I think I once again, I looked up on Twitter. It was retweeted or tweeted out by Detroit Bad Boys, the SB Nation affiliate for the Pistons. It stated that the Pistons held an opponent under 90 points only 3 times total last year. They've already matched that in these past 3 games alone. So another impressive display for the defense. I think that attributes to the moves that you made in the offseason to improve your depth and improve your bench. I think that will show as the season wears on how you need some defensive stops when your starters need some rest, and also you can also depend on whether it be looking to Ish Smith or looking to a John Lure, looking to a Boban Marjanovic, for instance. That once you put the secondary, the second unit in, you won't get a set of doom and gloom like you did last year when, oh my God, you have to deal with Steve Blake of all people. So those, among other things, have definitely led to the good start the Pistons have had thus far.
And let's get to Andre Drummond. He's doing his job in the paint too, but his free throws. The first 2 games in the homestand, he was a total of 6 for 10 from the charity stripe, but earlier this past Tuesday, not so hot. I think he only hit 1 free throw. He's 1 for 6.
Oh God! And then that's I remember you telling me he went 0 for 4 in the first half. So that's not quite. Yeah, 1 for 6 for the game, 0 for 4 in the first half. Horrible. And of course, like I said, that's One of the reasons why his current percentage is at 41%. So, the whole virtual reality thing, I think we can put a quiet lid on that. Say, oh, wow, here, look how it did for him. Okay, listen, it's 4 games in. We know that something like this doesn't change overnight. We got to give him some time, for better or for worse, to see where he goes from here. Now, clearly, he's still got some things that he's got to work out. Let's hope he gets through it.
I'm going to check the box score one more time. Free throws. 1 for 6 for Andre Drummond. Ish Smith didn't even go to the charity stripe even once. Marcus Morris, 2 for 4 from the free throw line. Tobias Harris, 7 for 8. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, 1 for 1. But that's pretty much it.
Also, another thing in terms of stats, you look at it, Ish Smith. I mentioned how good of a job he's done so far filling in for Reggie Jackson. Show him once again in this game showing off his facilitating abilities. Had 8 assists to go along with his 10 points. So his job as the designated backup point guard once Reggie returns is to do exactly that. Maintain control on the court, feed the ball to your guys, and get them in good spots to make good shots. So he's filling that role perfectly. Another thing that did surprise me, though, Carmelo Anthony, only 8 of 8. Yeah, he had 24 points, but that was only off of 8 of 18 shooting. Very cold night for Melo, and even Kristaps Porzingis for another thing, for that matter. He had 18, but that was only on 7 of 18 shooting. And for some reason, Jeff Hornacek, the head coach for the Knicks, didn't have him up there in a couple of crucial possessions out on the floor that much when they were trying to cut the lead out. Because at one point it was cut down to 3. Then throughout a stretch in the fourth, when they were trying to stay in it, good deep. Now, granted, credit of that does go to Detroit's defense, how they shut down the Knicks. Because they held them only to 10 points period in total in the fourth quarter. But you got to take into consideration, when you're trying to make a comeback, it wouldn't make better sense to have one of your best players out there. Porzingis, he wasn't out there for some reason. Derrick Rose had a good game, that was expected. But when you have bad nights from shooting nights from Carmelo Anthony and Kristaps Porzingis, and Porzingis isn't even in the game at crucial moments, but inserted in the game at crucial moments, it will help. It's definitely a detriment to your team and a good benefit to the other team. I would say that.
Yep. So the Pistons have an upcoming road schedule coming up. First off, they're in Brooklyn. The Nets are 1-3. They haven't have they never beat the Brooklyn Nets on the road since they beat the New Jersey Nets?
I'm pretty sure they've had at least once since the move to Brooklyn. I'm sure they've done it at least once. Might have done it last year, but I have to look that up. But that seems like a very, very winnable game.
Yeah, if they keep losing the Brooklyn Nets on the road, that we're gonna be all over them.
Yeah.
Then on Wednesday, that tips off Wednesday at 7:30. Then they're home against the Denver Nuggets Saturday at 7. The Nuggets are 1-2 before they go out west and play the Los Angeles Clippers, who are undefeated, Monday at 10:30, and then the Phoenix Suns at American West Arena Wednesday at 9. The Suns are winless, 0-4.
Oh man!
So that's another winnable game. Unlike the Clippers game, the Clippers Pistons have a lot of work cut out for them. The Clippers are unbeaten. They're unbeatable. Pistons are going to have to get really ready for that one.
Not to mention the fact they also close out that West Coast trip with not just another matchup with the Nuggets, this time in Denver on Saturday the 12th at 9. You can actually catch it on TV at NBA TV. But the night before, Friday the 11th, Veterans Day at 8:30, they have to travel to San Antonio, where Boban will take on his old pals, the Spurs. Very tough game for sure. Doubt they'll win that game, but we'll see how they perform if they have at least a brave enough showing in what looks to be a likely loss. But yeah, that is a very, very tough 5-game stretch with that West Coast trip So if they could find a way to have somehow get 3-2, or have a respectable 2-3 with one of those losses to the Spurs, then I wouldn't have a problem with that.
All right, so
I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry. If they could find a way to split it 2-2, that would be fine. My apologies.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Oh yeah.
So we're looking forward to that, and with everything covered, now we turn to 5 questions. Are you ready, Ed?
Ready as you are, Taylor. So let him rip.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker.
Question number 1, do the Michigan Wolverines still have a shot at making the college football playoff?
Yeah, without question. It's really the hard part for them was out of the way. Well, not too much because they still have some work ahead of them, but they are in the driver's seat. This is their spot to lose. They only have a couple of really, if you want to qualify them as, possible trap game, maybe Iowa since it's on the road at night, prime time, and maybe Indiana, even though it's at home, but it's the week before Ohio State. Then, of course, at Ohio State to close out the regular year. Then potentially the Big Ten championship game the week after that. Most likely, the way things play out, most likely against Wisconsin again. So I'm really not looking forward to that, to be honest, because it seems to be a very difficult game. But even still, they have if they just went out, because they're at a spot now in the season where a loss would be almost, if not entirely, cataclysmic to their playoff chances. So they're in a spot where they have to win out, no matter the cost here. So yeah, they definitely got a good shot to make it. They're already in the Final Four as of right now. If it started today, they will be in. So you don't have to worry about that. They just got to win out, beat Ohio State, win their conference, and they're in. They are a shoo-in. There's no way in hell an undefeated, 13-0 Michigan team who have won a Big Ten title, won all their games, beat Ohio State with Jim Harbaugh as the head coach. There's no, and a possible Heisman contender. There's no way that team's going to get leapfrogged for one of those 4 spots. They'll be in safely if they manage to win out and win their division and win their conference.
They still have to keep in mind. They still have to go to Iowa and beat the Hawkeyes after their next game at home against the Maryland Terrapins.
Very true, but Harbaugh will have them ready. I have faith in that.
Yep.
Next question.
Me too. Question number 2, are the Michigan State Spartans officially done looking forward?
Yes, the season, this was basically their last shot to try to turn things around to a certain degree. I don't know what level of degree, 180 if you want to call it that or whatever, or even a 90. But they're either stuck at 0 or made a complete full 360. So their season is effectively over. They have 6 losses officially. They're not officially out of the bowl hunt yet, but you still got Ohio State to look forward to and Penn State at the end of the year. So most likely, we're looking at a team that could potentially, bare minimum, might finish with 8 losses on the year. So yeah, this season's officially done. You just now focus on trying to finish out the year without too many guys getting hurt or killed because, not killed by the morbid sense of what we saw off the field, but we're talking on the field by players getting hurt and injured. I mean, Jabril Peppers ended Lewerke's season with 1 play, so you don't want any more of those situations happening, particularly to any more of your quarterbacks. So between that and discussing and figuring out who's going to keep their job, who's going to lose their job from one of the members on the coaching staff at the end of the year, since D'Antonio is not going to do this mid-season. He's not going to make this type of transition this way. Or if D'Antonio becomes, sticks to his loyalty gun and it's bad used as a detriment against him by keeping some of these guys on next year. It'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out. In terms of what they can aspire for, but maybe postseason aspirations, it's not official yet, but yeah, it's done. It's done and dead for this year.
Yeah, you mentioned that the Spartans were looking at 8 losses this season. I'm looking at 9, if not 10.
At least 8, because I'm looking at Ohio State and Penn State as guaranteed losses, hence my term for 8. But if it wouldn't surprise me if they go 3-9. I think they'll win at least one. At least one. They can't be that horrible where they will lose. They start out 2-0, big win against Notre Dame, and it completely. If you want to use the term for tanking, this is a tank job right here. Completely tank the rest of the season. I just don't see that happening. It'll be pleasing for me to see, but realistically, I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, you wanted catharsis and annihilation in that in-state rivalry game. That reminds me of that.
I didn't get annihilation, but I did get I did get my catharsis. So, and I got a win. Win is a win.
Yep, fair enough. Fair deal.
Next question.
Question number 3: Is Lions head coach Jim Caldwell's seat much hotter, and should it be after his decision to go for the onside kick with 2:53 left? Because we know he's become dumber.
Yeah, we know he's become dumber, but obviously with the decision that he made and the fact that it's getting this much airtime and attention, yeah, his seat has to have become hotter, because this is year 3, even though it's, year 1 under a new regime, new GM, new team president, and all that. This is year 3 of your contract of you being brought on from the old regime. So this is more so of a chance by week by week evaluation of should you be kept beyond this season. So far, he has not made a good case for himself. The decisions, not just the decisions that he made alone in this game, not to mention the decisions that he's made in previous games before that. So yes, seat is without doubt hotter right now. I wonder. I hoped it hadn't cooled down at all in the midst of his 3-game winning streak. But the old saying, winning cures everything. But it's glad to see that it's back on the forecast of the radar, so to speak, right here.
Definitely.
Next question.
Question number 4: Which has more effect on the Wings' 2-game losing streak thus far? Thomas Vanek's injury or the Corsi percentages of Danny DeKeyser and the OMG line?
While the Corsi percentages are troubling, there is a simple remedy. Just don't play those assholes. Just limit their minutes, keep them the fuck off the ice. Whereas with Vanek, it's out of your hands. You're dealt a blow. This is one of, you could probably say your best offensive guy so far, leader in goals, leader in points throughout the team. So to see him get dealt this type of injury and now you're not knowing when he's going to come back, it definitely has played obviously an effect on your offense, and is one big reason, in my view, why they have gone on even though it's a 2-game streak. The way they have looked as a whole, I think you attribute some of that to Thomas Vanek's injury.
Yeah, but the OMG line has been together all season long thus far through 10 games. It's still got 72 games to go, but I believe Ken Holland and Jeff Blashill are going to stick with the Ott Miller Glendening line for the rest of the season, because they just are dysfunctional, too loyal, and all kinds of shit, all kinds of the same shit, and stuff like that. So I say it's a tie between Vanek's injury and the OMG line. It's pretty close.
Yeah, the OMG line makes a good bid for it, but I would say that Vanek's injury just slightly puts it over the top.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha.
Next question.
Question number 5: How can the Pistons win on the road?
Well, they have much better. Look at their tape of how they played against Toronto, and just do the exact opposite. Have better offensive possession. Share the ball more. Don't go try to one pass, take a shot, drink. No, that's just on the offense. Defense, they've got to do a better job of switching. If they're doing switches, they got to react faster to the ball, get back to the player. Obviously, guard the perimeter. They really should not have a problem with the paint. I think the Toronto game was an anomaly. Some of that you could attribute to the fact that Drummond was in foul trouble, of course. But even still, you have Boban in there, you have Lure in there, you have Aaron Baines in there. We know Baines is a bit of a defensive liability, but still you have these other big bodies around him, and seeing a clown like that in the paint was a bit discomforting. But I think in terms of how they need to play better on the road, better showcase of their strength, which is an inside team at the paint, at the rim, would be key. Do not give them too many threes, and, you know, like I said, better ball movement and ball sharing with your possessions.
Definitely. So that wraps up 5 questions for all the listeners and fans out there. If you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. That wraps up episode 237 of the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker, the football, the weekly recap. Thanks so much again for your help, Ed. I'll talk to you again on episode 238 this Thursday at midnight, the next installment of the Football and the Mitten preview.
Looking forward to it, Taylor. And once again, to commemorate this weekend's victory, go blue.
Yep. So, before we sign off, I want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media as well. Have their friends share that as well, and follow me on Spreaker as Taylor Phillips online at Spreaker.com, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET and privately message them. Also like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. Also find their podcasts available on iTunes and Podbean. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. If there's anything you fans want more of or less of on our podcast, please let us know. Follow us on Twitter at DT2Phillips with 2 L's and at EdSmith313. Also like our Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker, and join our Facebook group. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.